Hello, this is Adam Sassatelli from SIUE. Thank you for tuning in to AS Design's tutorials. Today we are going to be going over how to create basic interactivity with our mouse through ActionScript. I'll be working with ActionScript 3.0 and Flash CS4. So let's set up our stage to form a basic website. I'm going to create a couple buttons with the text. I'm going to name these Adam and Sam, which just happens to be me and my brother. And I'm going to move these down to the side and in the center of our frame. And these are going to be our buttons. So let's create them, make them into buttons. If I right click on Adam, go to convert to symbol, and I change the type to a button, and I name it, I want to name it Adam_button. And be sure to name it with the convention of button so that you recognize it later on if you're going to call it. And then I want to change the instance name also so I can refer to it in ActionScript. I'm going to make it equal the exact same thing, Adam_button. I'm going to do the same exact thing to Sam. So convert to symbol, Sam_button, and change to button. Okay, and I'm going to change the instance name to Sam_button. All right, there we go. Now I also want these to have rollover colors. So if I double click on Adam, and then you can see I have my up, over, down, and hit. I want to change my roll over, so the over frame, and press F6 to create a new keyframe. And I'm going to change it from red to blue. Very, very easy to do. I'm going to do the same thing with Sam. So click on my over frame, press F6 for a new keyframe, and change it to blue. So now whenever I test my movie, Control Test Movie, you can see my rollovers are working fine. Now nothing happens, but my rollovers. Now what I want to do is I want to create a square which is going to house all the information. So when I click on Adam, I want all the information about Adam to come up in the square. When I click Sam, I want all his information to come up in the square too. So I'm going to create that square, and I'm going to leave it to be blue. All right, and we're good there. So now how I want this to do is we got to make a couple keyframes. So let's create keyframes on the 10th keyframe. So press F6 on frame 10, F6 on frame 20, and F6 on frame 30. And then on frame 40, press F5 just to extend that frame to frame 40. All right, so what we want to do is when we click Adam, I want it to come up with Adam's info. And so what we want to do there is create a text box on the frame 10 that says, well, I'm just going to put Adam's info for nothing better in my mind right now. And let's make this a little bit bigger and change the color to red so we can see it. So now whenever I click on Adam, I'm going to have it say Adam's info. Now on frame 20, I'm going to do the same thing, but except for Sam's info. So create a text box on frame 20. Sam's info, and move that down to center it. And on our first frame, I'm actually going to make a welcome screen so that anybody coming in here will feel really happy. Welcome. Okay, and actually I was going to create 3 buttons, but I'm only going to do 2 for the sake of time today. So I'm going to delete these frames. So right click and remove frames of my 3rd keyframe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name these frames. I'm going to label the frames. So what I want to do is on my first one, it's going to be my welcome frame. So I'm going to go over to my properties panel, and under label, I'm going to type in welcome. Same thing on frame 10, I'm going to type in Adam, and I'm going to name it the Adam for the frame. And the same thing on frame 20, except I'm going to name it Sam. So there we go. This is just going to make it a lot easier when we call this an ActionScript. So let me go into, let's create a new layer and name it Actions. And remember, we need the Actions layer to be on the very top layer. And we're going to put all of our ActionScript into the first frame of our Actions layer. So if we go to Control and Test Movie right now, you can see it's going to just keep cycling through. It's going to loop. And as I've covered in my previous tutorial, we covered the stop function to stop that looping. So that's exactly what we're going to do right now. We're going to go to right click in the first frame of our Actions layer and click on Actions, or you can go to Window at the top and go to Actions there. And we're going to create a stop function. So by typing stop, open and close parentheses, and semicolon to end the thought. And now when we go to Control, Test Movie, we're going to see it stops on the very first frame. And we still have our rollovers working and everything. So let's go back into our actions. And now we're going to create the interactivity. So when I click on Atom, I want it to jump to the frame that I labeled Atom. So we have to write a function. And what a function is it's just saying that when something happens, this is going to happen, if that makes sense. So let's start by writing it. Okay, so to create the function, we're going to go to Function, and then we want to name it. So you can name your function whatever you want in this part. So I'm going to name it Atom Click, because when I click on Atom, this is what I want to happen. And then we need to name an event. So we type event, and we want it to be some type of mouse event. So if you scroll down on this, after you type event and then a colon, it'll give you all these options. I want it to be a mouse event. So if I go to mouse event right there and click enter, it's going to type in mouse event. And then I'm going to close my parentheses because that's what I want to happen. And then because Flash always expects to return a value with a function, you have to write void after it. So if I press colon and then void after it, that's going to say that don't keep looking, don't use resources looking for a value, because we're not going to return a value, we're just going to have it jump to a new frame. Okay, so void, and then on the next line I'm going to create what I want this function to do. So I'm going to make a squiggly bracket, and what we want it to do is go to and stop on the frame that we labeled Atom. So we're going to go to and stop, and then parentheses, and our frame labels you have to put in quotation marks. So we named it Atom in parentheses, and then semicolon because it's the end of what we want it to do, and then we're going to close our bracket. Okay, so there we created a function. Now we have to create the event listener to listen for mouse click, and when somebody clicks with their mouse, we want it to call this exact function that we just created. So what we're going to do is we're going to go up to the target right here, and we're going to target the button that we created. So when somebody clicks on this button, and we named it Atom Button, so click target and then Atom Button, okay. So it's going to say this Atom Button, and then we need to call an event listener. So add event listener, and then parentheses. And now we want to, with our event listener, we want to have it be the mouse event, like we said. I put motion event up here. I meant to put mouse event. I said mouse, click motion. Now we want it to be mouse event, and we want it to be a mouse click, so we're going to type click after it. And that will call it a mouse click, and we want to call the function that we just created. So Atom Click is what we want to call, so we type in Atom Click in parentheses and semicolon. And now when we go to Control Test Movie, when you click on Atom, it's going to pull up Atom's info. We just created this function. Alright, so we're going to do the exact same thing for Sam, and what I'm going to actually do is copy, do this the easy way, copy that whole thing, separate them, and paste. And now I have function. Now we named everything the same except for the name. So Sam is what we called everything. So let's call it Sam Click. And that's what we're naming our function. So function Sam Click, we want it to be a mouse event. We're not returning any value, so you don't forget void right there. And in this function, we want it to go to and stop, not on Atom, the frame label Atom, but on the frame label Sam, which would be labeled, or frame 20 is what we put it on. Then our button is not called Atom Button, it's called Sam Button. And we want to add the event listener to when somebody clicks, it calls on the function, which means go to and stop on Sam. So we want that to be the function Sam Click. And now, when I go to Control Test Movie, it should work. So let's click on Atom. We have Atom's info, and Sam's info. So it works. I hope that helps with teaching a little bit about interactivity with the purpose of kind of creating websites and stuff in Flash. Our next episode, we're going to go over how to interactively control different symbol attributes using ActionScript. So whether we're controlling the alpha channel, the transparency, rotation, all of those things, that's what we're going to go over in my next tutorial. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this helped. This is Sassatelli with AS Designs Tutorials. Have a great day.